Hey everyone, I just opened a box that was sent down to me, couriered down to me. Inside I found a 1UZ wiring loom, funnily enough. Computer is 89661502241, so that's a second generation non-VVTi, so UCF20. So they ran from about 94 through till about 97. Inside the box was also a piece, was this dash. It was a 4x4 computer with a piece of surf gearbox loom and a early model Hilux wiring loom. So I'm going to work with that. There's some ugliness in it, which can be expected. But what I'm going to do is we're going to run through the diagrams and instructions for doing a 20 series wiring loom to manual. That should be fairly straightforward. We're going to get that done first, and then I'm going to attempt to sort out the rest of the loom and make that dash work and stuff like that. So I'm going to get into it and make a plan. So the first thing I do when I get a loom is I check the connectors, and this one's actually pretty good. It's a bit of a sweetheart. Wow. Even the temp connectors in good order. Coil connectors in good order. That loom is lovely. That's one of the better looms I've seen for a while. These ones are always broken. It's not broken. So the speed sensor plugs on the trans. Definitely one of the best looms I've seen for a while. Now I haven't actually got my diagrams sorted yet. Other things to note on this one. So in the body plug here we've got a big 28 pin plug. We've got a smaller plug next to it. Oh sorry, that's a 26 pin plug. It's the same as the VVTIs. And in here we need that 28 pin plug that hasn't been supplied. So that's not a problem. If we look in this diagnostic box, if we look at the lid, it's got the wiring. So we've got no W and no TE1 in the TE2 in this box. So we are going to modify that box so we can get readings out of it for the scan tool. This stuff that they have on the injector wires always falls to pieces every single time. It's absolutely crap. So what I start when I do a job like this is get rid of some tape, get into the loom itself. I'm going to leave that firewall grommet there if I can. So I'm going to take this conduit off here. Here's the loom number. So it's 82121 50330. I'm going to take, so I can get it through this grommet, I'm going to split it in here, take this tape off and take this back cover off. That'll allow me to whip the transmission loom out. I don't need diagrams for that. Remove that traction control. And we're going to delete traction control TPS as well. So we'll cut that off, but I'll do a modification to that in there so the computer thinks it's non-traction control. So all that's fairly basic. So as I continue on this loom, I've taped up everything going out to the airflow meter and the igniters and the oxygen sensor on the right hand side. So I've just checked all that's all good. The earth straps, all that plasticky stuff that's external on the wires, I try and get as much of that off as I can. So I've taken that off and taped that earth on the right hand side. I've lifted out the transmission loom. There's the transmission loom there. and we're going to remove that in a moment. I'm going to tape up from the left-hand oxygen sensor. I put a little bit of conduit where it was in the transmission loom. Actually, I call this conduit. What else around the world do you call it? Sometimes it's called split sleeve. It's interesting because I have people all around the world that I communicate with. I'm not always sure that I'm using the correct terms. Sometimes they ask me what I mean when I say a certain thing. So that's taped up. And I'm going to run another earth in here over to my relay for my relays and fuses. I'll put its own independent earth in. Because this one is going to have its own gearbox loom, I'm not going to reuse or recycle any of this wiring here. This is all going to come out. So it's actually pretty simple to do. So you get it, you give it a little pull like this. You trace the wire through to its plug. So we find that yellow wire, and we're going to pop it out. We pop the tabs up. We go in here and there's a little lock tab. We lift it and we pop it out. That's the yellow wire gun. White wire's got a joint on it. So the same thing, we lift that lock tab, identify the wire, in there, and out it comes. And you see this one's got a joint on it. This is the reverse wire. So it gives the signal to the computer for reverse. Plus it does the reverse lights in the car. These ones are all the signals again for the gear indicators. So they're all coming out. For those of you who are really paying attention, you may have noticed that I've taken the STA out and the NSW, neutral switch. Those are for like the start input and the start inhibit circuit. I will be returning, this is a manual vehicle, so I will be returning STA, but I'll leave the neutral switch out. But at this part of the job, it's easier just to remove it, get it out of the way, and then I'll refit that plug and refit that pin to the ECU. Well, this one's with the big joints because they were a little bit tricky coming out. I'm just going to nip them off. So they pull back through that rubber better. So all these green ones can come out, and that blue one. Okay, so we've nearly got it, but we've got one wire, which is this brown wire. And you'll see here, if I pull this, oh, what's it doing? It's going in there. So, it comes up into here. It's an earth wire. So, what I do with that is, it's up here, here it is. There it is there. So in this case, I'm going to deal with that a little bit later. Actually, no, I'll do it here. So it's that wire in there. Nip it off, we'll whip it out and tape it up so it doesn't cause any issues for us. So there we have it. Transmission loom removed. With only a few wires cut. We'll let them go out of the way. So that was pretty straightforward. The next bit we're going to remove is the traction control. We're going to remove the traction control motor first. So there we have the traction control motor wiring. I'm going to unfeed it from here a bit. So there it is there. Now it goes up to its own plug, which is this plug here. So if we unfeed it again, what we do have is this red wire. That goes to the TPS. So we're going to nip off the little one, leave the big one. Yeah, so there's the black red, and that's black red, which is on the TPS is the idle switch. Again, taped up so we don't have any issues. Okay, then what I do here, I'm not going to be able to pull that plug through, so we whip the plug off, grab this, out it comes, and there we have the traction control plug wiring gone. Now if your idle speed control unit is a bit yucky, if that plug is broken at all, they are the same, so you can pop the pins and swap it over. That one can go. Right, next we're going to address the TPS wiring, or the sub-TPS wiring for the traction control. So what we're going to do is undo this cover, and I'll make the joints inside. So the same, we've got this plasticky crap. So I take all that tape off and take that plasticky stuff that's all falling to bits off. But now it's really, really important that you remove the correct unit. You look really silly if you get the wrong one. So if you grab a multimeter, and I expect you know how to use check for continuity. We've got my diagrams. We want to remove IDL2, which is here, and VTA2. if people know how to read diagrams. It shows IDL2, which is in B31, and it shows red black, which is that wire we were just looking at. It also shows it bridging out to brown, and one of them, then it says with traction control is red black, and without traction control is brown. Now brown is commonly in earth on Toyotas. So with traction control, it's got a black red that runs out to the Sub-TPS. Without it, it's a brown that goes to earth. So what I'm going to do is over here, we're going to cut those wires. I'm just going to double check that brown wire to show you what I'm doing. We're going to put them together. And then VTA, if I can find it in here. My hand's a bit sticky from the glue. Here's VTA 1. Here's VTA 2. And it's got C12. It's got with traction control is yellow, green. Funnily enough, over here, yellow, green. And without traction control, it's blue, red. And the blue, red goes straight out and links into VC, which is your 5-volt signal. With traction control, it has the sensor. Without, it's just got a 5-volt signal. So you can whip it all the way back to the ECU if you want and do it there, but I find it most convenient to do it just under this plastic cover, nice and neat and tidy. So we'll just continuity test just to show what I mean. So we've got the black red, and we're going to B31. So with the diagrams, if I got a pen, I could probably just draw it on there for you. I recommend you print a couple of the headers out. There's B31, and that is IDL2. Can be a bit slow doing it like this, but it does mean you get it right. We'll pull over here. Here's B. B31 is just beside the join there. And we've got continuity. So that is IDL2, the second idle switch. It's pretty obvious on these ones because it's the grey plug that we're removing, but it does pay just to double check on every single one. Just, you don't want to get it wrong. So I just nip that off like so. Nip that off like so. I stagger them. That's the plug gone. And those will tuck nicely down in there, like so. We grab some tape, we retape the TPS. Oh, that's a good sound. That's the end of my roll. It's always a good day when you finish a roll of duct tape. A bit like ballpoint pens, they seem to all disappear and you never finish them. Right, so there we've got rid of the traction control. We've bridged it so the computer thinks it's a non-traction control ECU. The looms are gone, the extra wiring's gone, looking much neater. So I'm going to continue for a bit. I'm going to remove this crappy plastic shit from the injector wires and retape them, tidy that side up, and then we'll look at this diagnostic box and see what we can do with that. Next, I'm going to work on the loom that goes down the left hand side of the engine. I've already done these two injectors. I've peeled the conduit back a little bit. Going to adjust the diagnostic box to make it so it works and plugs a scan tool in. It's important to kind of know, well, it helps to know the functions of the scanner to when you're adjusting this box. So we'll go through that quickly, and then we're going to hook in and actually make some adjustments, do that part of the loom. So people often talk to me and they say we can't plug a scan tool into our Lexus. And I'm like, you know, where did you plug it in? And this one on the engine. Well, the one on the engine doesn't always contain all the pins required to talk to a scan tool. What they normally have is one under the dash. That looks like this. So that's the normal one that you plug your scanner in, and they always have all the pins required. So I add an adapter to the Loom. Oh, I've got a visitor. I'll be back in a minute. Good girl. Good girl. Oh, yeah. Good girl. What I'm going to do is make this one and that one match. So in here, as a quick rundown of how the scan tool works, you've got plus B. Plus B is the same power that goes to the ECU on the plus B terminal, and it also goes to the stepper motor. That wire should stay on for about 4 seconds after you turn the key off. You've got FP. I normally wire this. That's to do, if you bridge plus B and FP, it should fire up the fuel pump, bypassing the fuel pump circuits, and it comes like on the key. It's a get you home situation. CCO isn't needed, cruise controls. You've got E1 is the earth. So W, and you'll see W isn't in there. W is needed for the scan tool to count the pulses. So when you bridge E1 and TE1, it will activate the check light output, put the engine in base timing as well. And then when you bridge E1 and TE2, it puts out the communication on VF1, which is also known as ENG on some. So this one doesn't have a TE1 and it doesn't have a W, so we're going to put them in. You've got your 2 oxygen sensor wires, so we're going to leave those, OX1, OX2, so you can test your oxygen sensor output with very, very simply with those in there. And you've got IG negative, and that's a tacho output, so you can test that. In there, AB, OP1, CC2, TC, TS, WA and WB, they can all go. So what I'm going to do is I'll swap a couple of wires around, connect them into those 2, so we have a diagnostic socket that will actually work, but I'll make an adapter so I can plug my scan tool in. The information out of this, they can be a little bit different, so it might not have a temperature, it might have temperature voltage instead, but it is a good indication when you're working on diagnosing problems, which hopefully aren't any, but these things do happen. The other thing I'm going to do while I'm in here is these engines don't have a fan output, so I'm going to recycle some of these wires for a fan output, or for a fan switch, and sometimes I do them for oil pressure as well, but in this case I'll use the hydraulic fan solenoid wiring for the output for the oil light. I'm going to take CCO, move that to W, find CCO over here, so looking at this plug, there's W, there's CCO, and so W is also in the ECU, comes from the ECU, and it's there. So there's yellow, orange, blue. So we're going to join those together later. I'll just put that in my memory banks. So I'll put a plug on that, and that can be used for the fan switch. So I'm going to get in and tidy this area up, make it look like the other side, which I did earlier. So it's been retaped, all that crappy stuff that falls off, plastic covering, that's all gone, taped up, so that's ready to done. Airflow meter stuff's done. Finish this bit. I'm going to do these earths, And pretty much that's this part of the loom done, and then we move over to working by the ECU relays and fuses and connections over there. The wiring all down to that diagnostic box. The injector plugs on this side is all finished. There's your the fan switch, fan switch wiring, and there's the fan switch. It may need those wires to be extended depending where the fan switch goes. So I'm ready to clip the back cover on, just double checking everything in here is good. And we'll pop this cover on. There we have it, the main body of the wiring done. TPS has come back to haunt me, TPS plug. Now I'm going to move on to brown the ECU. So we've got a check light in the corner, this purple wire, and that green wire can come out. So that green wire is for idle 1. It's going to come back to a joiner. There it is there. So it's there. We'll clip that off and retape that. That's that green wire. And I like to remove them completely so they're not floating around. And then this purple wire is coming out. I think the purple wire was THWO, a water temp output, part of the air conditioning system. So that one's coming out. So what I have left in here is check light, an earth, which I'll use for the diagnostic plug, a blue white and a blue. So the blue's been swapped and the blue white is going to be the fan switch. So they're all good. And then we're going to work on the 26 pin plug here. So that's the starter, the big black one. That's plus B in the diagnostic box. So that will be tapped into number 11, I think. Yep. So those two are going to be put together. That's fuel pump. Now I'm actually going to cheat on this one. I happen to have a relay and fuse box set up already. I do have fuel pump put in it. FP, so I'll be using that. So that's the bridge from the diagnostic box. This yellow-green is the temperature sensor on the engine. We've got the green, red, green, black. That's FP and FC. FPR, sorry, and FC. So that's fuel pump controls. So we'll be using those. The black, yellow, I think is tacho. Let me confirm. Yep, that's tacho. Black red is diagnostics, I think. I'm correct, there it is. It's joint. That's it is TE1. We want to keep that. The next one I think is coming out. Oh, that's VF1 is the grey. That's a big earth. There's coil powers and injector powers. Here's this grey. So that's coming out, and that blue white is coming out. For the diagnostic, I've got TE1, got TE2, which is was option 1, so that goes to the diagnostic box now and to the ECU. And TE2 comes from the center of that 28 pin plug off the ECU. I've got a blue wire and a yellow wire that are going to go together for the engine check light, the W. We've got ENG or VF1, which is that grey, and we've got an earth. That gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's everything we need. What I am going to do though for the engine check light is I'm going to run that back out because I want to have a connection for the dash with the engine check light on it. So diagnostic box, W is the check light, ENG is this grey wire, or VF1, same thing. TE2 is the pink blue on this one. Earth, Toyota Earth is brown. TE1 is red, black. So there's our diagnostic connector done. Next we'll do the dash. Yellow, green, water temp. I've added this engine check light wire. This is the tacho wire. So black, yellow. And then I've got these ones. So these wires here were for the hydraulic fan. One's black, one's blue, yellow. So what I'll do is I'll ask the customer to cut the hydraulic fan plug off because we're not running it, and to connect those to the oil pressure. That'll give us oil pressure on the dash. So there we have a dash plug and diagnostic connector for my scan tool. So once I've got the diagnostic connector and the dash connector for the engine loom done, I move on connecting it to the relays and fuses. I'm using one of my easywire relay sets. I often have them in stock. This one, it doesn't normally have a start relay in it, but because I don't want to load the stock loom too much, I'm going to pop a start relay in it. So I'm just going to modify that setup a little bit. Now the next step I'm going to do is remove this plug and connect it into put a connector on for this. So here we have the loom. I've connected in the 8 pins, 8 wires going into the engine loom and a start wire, so that's number 9. Plugged in the ECU. I used the easywire kit that I normally have, but I did modify it a little bit and put a start relay in. Some of them have it, some don't, and I've put in an extra wire for the 4x4 off the ignition relay. This vehicle is going to have another loom built for the gearbox. So once I've got it all together like this, I go through and I check power to all the injectors, to the coil. There's also coil power in here. You'll notice I've got the earth on the back and I've got them linked together. And I'm just connecting the scan tool, so I'm going in through that one, the semicircle. You have to power the scan tool externally. This is my check light, so it's flashing, which is normal. I'd say it's probably got a code present because there's no sensors connected. But it's nice to have that to see if the ECU is actually generating codes too. A good diagnosis way if you've got an engine that's not running right or you're suspicious of it is to actually unplug some sensors and see if it generates codes. So this is a UCF20. And there it goes, it's counting those flashes, and it's actually just counting those pulses of that check light. So it's got to have a check light in place. If you wire it all up and you wire W to your scan tool, but you don't connect a check light, the scan tool won't actually pick it up because it's physically checking the pulses. So it's bringing up an airflow meter signal, an intake air temp signal. Should be a temp sensor, throttle position sensor. I sometimes have a TPS connected so I can read some signals. So that's good. Check some current data. We've got some current data happening there. So I'm happy about that. So I'm just going to check, I'm going to swap over, I'm going to unplug the power off this one. And we'll look at the other one. So I'm going to swap to the rectangular one. Now remember, I've modified this diagnostic box here. So we've plugged in. It's picking up that the scan is attached. And again, we're going in. Now, interesting thing, when the ECU sees a start signal, it fires the fuel pump. So I don't have a start signal. I don't have a start input or a starter motor attached, but you can see that test light's going. Relay's clicking, and that's when the start signal happens. The fan switch, I put the fan switch wires in there, so I can just click onto that fan, and if I bridge those two wires, the fan will go. The imaginary fan will go. Come on, doing it with one hand is not so easy. There's the fan running, so that's tested, so those circuits are working. I've already gone through and checked the powers and all that, so that's all working like it should. Better go in as a rectangular plug. And there it goes, it's checking check light, it's checking fault codes. So that's communicating now because I've modified that diagnostic box. That's a long one. And there's the current data. So there you go. UCF20, manualised, scan tool works. Both scan tool works. I think it's time to call it a day. Catch you later.